Hi friends, just wanted to take about maybe 5 or 7 minutes to talk about this 68 Camaro, what I'm doing to it, what's going on right now, and what my immediate objective is in metal work and getting this thing buttoned up in the assembly process. So what I'm going to talk you through is just very briefly, the mini tub kit, the brackets that tie in the Dutchman panel or the speaker tray panel, whatever the proper word for that is. And to tie in the Y brackets, they're shaped like a Y that go on the back seat that tie the floor to the speaker tray or Dutchman panel, whichever the proper word is, and moving those around and doing it a bit differently. This is my third one. A bit differently than Detroit Speed had indicated to do. There's probably multiple reasons for that. Maybe it's just I feel it's an easier, more complete, more thorough and balanced process, because I'm all about balance. I'm a student, disciple of Thoth, the Atlantean, Thoth the Egyptian. He was all about balance. That's what I try to do. That's what I try to do in the car and everything I do in life. At least that's my intent. So let me grab the camera and just show you a little bit. The car's on a rotisserie, and let me go in here. Now, I talked about the Y bracket, and that's, for a lack of a better term, Y bracket. It's probably a proper name for it, but I'm just going to call it a Y bracket. Now, the other two Camaros, I kept those in place, and I cut the end off here to allow the wheelhouse to come in. This one, I'm doing it a bit differently. The wheelhouse is already moved in place, but the Y brackets I've removed and repositioned them. Now this one is done, and you can see that little bracket on the end is different for a 67, 68 versus a 69. Each one's a bit different. The passenger side, and this is the driver's side. Now on both of them I had to cut them up, and this one I've had to cut up quite a bit more. Because this piece right here, I put this bracket was tied onto this bracket. At one time it was one piece, and they went over the wheelhouse and they tied into the lower inner C-pillar on top of the wheelhouse, and then it tied into the Y bracket, tied into the speaker tray, tied into the wheelhouse. But because the wheelhouse came in, 4 inches or so, I had to cut that and modify that, because what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to chop the Y brackets. So the Y brackets have been moved in, and they're now touching right here, and they're going to be welded together to give it added strength. Now the seat frame brackets have not been moved, and they probably will need to be moved, but I'm not sure that's a job I'll do. I told the owner that that's probably going to have to happen, and his seat frames he's going to have to cut, take it to a good trim shop, and they can do it to get that task done. But here I just wanted to talk about this. This now is sitting flush on the inside of the bracket here, so that's going to be welded together. Now this cut right here, I'm going to weld that together and fill in this gap, bend it down a little bit, or put a spoon behind it. On the other side of this, I had to lengthen this bracket, and I'll show you when I go on the other side, to allow it to weld into the speaker tray as it was from the factory. Now here's the lower part of it. I've welded that on in the same place it was on the Y bracket, and I'm incorporating this little flange here because this is where the shape is of the wheelhouse. I'm going to weld that in, put another piece here, and this is going to have to make a whole piece to go right in here. to tie into the wheelhouse. It's just the way this one is versus that one, and they are different on the left and right side. And I do believe, because the other two Camaros were 69s, I believe that the 67, 68 are different than the 69. That's what I sort of remember. Now down here, the bottom of that Y bracket was all corroded and rotted, so I had to cut that out and made a new piece to put in there. That side was okay. Let me go around the other side. And this right here is the bracket, and you can see the extension piece where the vice grip is right here. I made that to go over, and it's going to tie in right here where my finger is. So all that's going to be welded in next. And I had to relieve this, and it looks like I'm going to have to maybe relieve that a little bit more to accommodate for that flange, but maybe not. Maybe I can squeeze that together and get it to weld, but I think that's going to have to come off again. Make a little notch right here where my finger is to accommodate that V. Also on this side, the right hand side of the upper part of the Y bracket, I'm going to have to use a 1-inch square piece of tubing, put behind there, and weld it in just like I did on the other side, because this bracket right here used to be welded right there where my finger is. Okay, so there's just little adjustments you got to make to make it work, and still try to make it look normal. And here's you can see the square bracket right there that I put in, or the square piece of tubing I put in for this side. Put that in there, and I might even put another piece on top. I don't know yet if that's adequate or not. Maybe I should put some more up there in this little gap right here. I think I might put a small piece right there to give it more strength. I don't know. I try to do the bare minimum plus, but not go overboard so it gets really, really expensive. You know, these are expensive. This is expensive work to do this. So, and then fixing the trunk, somebody scabbed in a middle section only, and they welded it right here to the tail panel, and I guess they didn't realize they should have trimmed the trunk pan, or the center drop-in part, trimmed it to fit, and cut it right here, and then weld it to the frame rail underneath, or the tie-in bar underneath the frame, or underneath the trunk pan. But you know, instead of cutting all that out, I just made a cut, and I'll probably put in a 1/2-inch bar, weld that in there, try to give it a sort of a transition, and then put some undercoating on it. Not undercoating, but seam sealer in there. And the owner's good with that. He wants to do that, so it cuts a little cost, but it doesn't be too intrusive, because the tail panel, the original one, has much sharper lines than it has much sharper lines excuse me, than the aftermarket ones. You know, they really do. So that's why we wanted to keep this one on here if at all possible, and it looks like we're going to have success doing that. So I don't know why it's not focusing, but anyways, anyways, that's about it. We'll say goodbye. Tschüss.